Welcome to the Wellness Connection podcast with Fiona Kane. I'm your host, Fiona Kane. And today I will be talking to you about the importance of listening to your body. I have talked a little bit about this in previous episodes, and the importance of the way we talk to children and what we teach children about listening to their body and listening to their intuition as well. I think it's an important topic. So that's where I'm headed with you today. So, firstly, I wanted to talk about. I was actually recently talking to a client about this topic, and this particular client had been quite disconnected from her body, and I was talking to her about how that came about and why it's important to reconnect now. So, I have discussed before that it is really important to be connected to your body because essentially, well, one, it is the longest relationship you're going to have in your whole life, you and your body. And a really important that we care for our body is we're connected, because if you're not connected, you don't notice important signals. So if you're not connected, you don't notice that you are full or that you are satisfied, and not before full, but satisfied. So you don't stop eating, right? So when we're disconnected, like that whole like unconscious eating thing, right? You'll be sitting there eating a bag of chips and then watching television or in the car, and you don't notice, right? You're not connected, you're disconnected, right? So we're eating unconsciously, not consciously connected to our body. So essentially, we can and do ignore important signs and signals when we're not connected to our body. And just noticing things like how you're feeling or symptoms you're having, or, are you feeling thirsty? Maybe you need some water. Or are you feeling tired? Maybe you need to rest. Are you feeling hungry? Maybe you need to eat. Have you overeaten? All of those things, they're all clues. Your body gives you certain signs and signals and clues as to maybe something that you can and that you can adjust to improve how everything's working. Because if you think about it, your body is full of a whole bunch of cells that are like a whole bunch of little factories, right? So if you think about it, your body being millions of little factories all contained in this body, right? Those millions of factories all require a certain level of ingredients and a certain temperature, a certain amount of sleep, a certain amount of basically your body requires certain parameters to function well. And so, no different to a factory where I assume something would start not working, an alarm would go off, or something would break down, or something would start making a funny noise, or whatever. And you start to notice, oh, okay, there's something wrong on this conveyor belt, or there's something wrong with this door, or there's something, or there's something wrong with the deliveries, and we're not getting the ingredients in. So we're in your body, it would be nutrients in. So essentially, the factory does start to make sounds or symptoms or hints that there's something off kilter, there's something not working. And that's why it's important to be connected, because when you're connected, you can kind of notice those things, simple, small things. And when you notice simple, small things, you often are able to correct things really quickly. And an example for me would just be like if basically my bowel doesn't like it too much when I stop eating vegetables or if I'm not having enough water. So all of a sudden I start sort of not being regular. And my first thing is to think, okay, what have I been doing? What have I been eating? What have I been not eating? Okay, I haven't eaten anything green for a couple of days, right? So it's just a really quick corrector for me to kind of go, all right, this isn't normal, feeling uncomfortable, feeling bloated. Okay, what do I need to do? Or like I said before, it's like, I'm thirsty. What do I need to do? I need water. Or I'm hungry. Oh, I haven't eaten for hours. No wonder. So I was having this conversation with a client, and I've had this conversation with many, many clients over the years. And this client had had a job that meant that she wasn't able to be present with her body. And I'll give you examples of what those jobs might be. It might be a surgeon or a nurse or someone just who's in an operating theatre, right? If you're in an operating theatre and you're doing like a 6-hour operation, it doesn't really matter if you need to go to the toilet or if you're hungry, thirsty, whatever. It's kind of like that's not relevant because the job needs to get done, right? Or it could be that you could be on a call center like Lifeline or something, and if you're in the middle of something really big, You can't just sort of think, oh, well, I need to go and do this thing for myself. You've got to be present for whatever's going on for you. That could be also if you're in security or if you're in police work or if you're in the army or navy or those kinds of jobs, football player out on the field in the middle of a game, whatever it is, right? But there's a lot of jobs that, unfortunately, train driver, a lot of jobs that make it hard for you to kind of just suddenly have different needs and to listen to your body the whole time. The jobs actually require you not to listen to your body for several hours at a time. Excuse me, I'll just have some water. I'm listening to my body. So, because there are these kinds of jobs, people often just learn not to listen to their body. And look, I understand the practicality of that in your different job. So I'm not having a go at anybody for that reason. But what happens is often we do it for way longer than it. Like even when we're not in the job anymore and we don't have to do that, we keep doing it. And other reasons, which I have discussed in previous episodes, that people might not be listening to their body or might not be connected to their body is if they've had any sort of trauma, any kind of abuse, or pain, any kind of pain or illness. They're the kinds of reasons why someone might disconnect. And those reasons can often be very good reasons at the time. And of course, if some of those, if you've had some really painful issues there, please go and get professional help to help you with this, because I know it's not simple for everyone depending on why you've disconnected. However, essentially, getting well does require reconnecting. And whether or not that's something you do slowly with some help from a therapist or whether that's something that you can do a little bit quicker depending on your situation. But a lot of us just aren't connected because we just don't even have an awareness around it, right? We just don't realize we've disconnected. And so it is, for some people it is quite simple because it's just a lack of awareness. And when they have the awareness, that can make all the difference. So when we do start to have an awareness, interesting things will happen as well. Because what I've noticed is a really, really common thing. So people who have disconnected don't notice they're hungry. So they go for 6, 7 hours and they haven't eaten, and then suddenly they kind of feel sick or they whatever, and I'm hungry, right? Or they don't even notice it until someone comes and says, you haven't eaten, here, have something to eat, right? And what happens with those people, when they reconnect with their body, they start to feel hunger, and they actually perceive the hunger as a negative thing, particularly if you've had a lot of dieting over your lifetime, and if you've sort of carried extra weight and ever felt bad about your body size or your body shape or whether or not you're too fat, too thin, whatever. If you've had any of those experiences in the past and had to really think about, go on diets and all of that kind of stuff, you've got a history of all of that sort of stuff, you might perceive hunger as a negative thing. It is not uncommon for people to perceive hunger as a negative thing. And almost too, if you've had spent a lot of time on diets, hunger is like, alarms going off. Oh my God, alarm going off. Hungry, hungry. I shouldn't feel hungry. And some people actually feel like if they feel hungry, there's something wrong with them. It means that they're, glutton or whatever. So there's a lot of negative connotation that we can have around even just something like hunger. So if we reconnect with our body, then we experience something like hunger. We think, oh, that's terrible. That's bad. And it's not bad. It's actually a really good sign that you're healthy and that your metabolism is working well. In very small number of cases, it's an extreme thing and it relates to, brain tumors and brain damage and things like that. But if you're hungry all the time and can never be satiated, but that's a whole different thing. I'm talking about a pathology there, whereas the everyday person, a lot of people are just uncomfortable with hunger. They perceive it as a bad thing, and it's not a bad thing. It is actually a sign of a healthy metabolism. It's a sign of a healthy body. So you're alive. It's good, and if there are issues around craving foods or around not being able to fill yourself up or feel full, all those kinds of things, then that's when you do investigate other things. For example, if someone's deficient in magnesium, they're more likely to be craving, and they'll be craving sugar and carbohydrates, that kind of thing. And when they've got enough magnesium in their system, they don't. Or what I've talked about many times before about making sure you're eating enough protein. You have protein with every meal because protein helps you feel full. So there's little things like that as well. But essentially, feeling hungry is a normal, healthy thing. It's normal part of being alive and being healthy. And it means your metabolism's working. So it's a good thing. The other thing too is, like, I'll give you an example for me, is that again, when I was talking about moving bowels, when I was a child, I was constipated for most of my childhood. And so when I did go, it was quite dramatic because it usually meant that, like, I used to have to go to the children's hospital or be taking medicines. And so when I went, it was quite an event, and quite a horrible event, and very painful and very difficult. So I came to associate that sort of like little tummy cramp that you might get before you move your bowel. I came to associate that with a bad thing. And so when I had that feeling, I thought it was bad and it was wrong. And it's taken me a while to kind of just know that, oh, actually it's normal, just a bit of a cramp, nothing major, but just a bit of a cramp that's just letting you know that your body's getting ready for that, is actually natural and normal. But I didn't realize that because I'd never had natural and normal. So I associated with something really negative. So we have a lot of those examples that individuals might have around certain feelings that they feel unnatural or not normal or whatever, and often they are perfectly normal, but we've just never experienced normal. So, or we have had some pain or some experience that's associated in the past that's been really stressful. And so we now have an association always with, this X equals Y, which is not always true. It's just the association that we have created. So the other thing that I notice is families can often make it worse with their children by teaching children to disconnect as well. So the example would be, if a child is saying that they're not hungry and said, "Oh no, you should be, and you need to eat more," and all this kind of stuff. I think it's important to understand, and I don't have numbers in front of me right now, but I'm sure you could Google it. But anyway, the size of a child's stomach at different ages, and so the appropriate amount of food for them to eat at different ages. And it's quite interesting how we expect them to eat as much as an adult would in, like, a baby or an infant or a child's stomach. So it's just understanding what's actually normal, and then knowing what's a normal amount of food to give that child, and is important. But the other thing too is, I've seen people order enormous amounts of food for children, and the child will say they're full. The child is actually listening to their. I saw a very specific case of this where a child was listening to their intuition, and she'd already eaten a lot. And she said, "Oh no, I'm full. I can't eat anymore." And one of the adults around her, in particular, said, "Oh no, I thought you were a big girl," and as if, like, somehow she should know that she should be eating, that she should naturally want to eat more. So she was bypassing that child's natural intuition. I think there's a problem with my computer. I'll take a break. I'll jump back in soon. I'll talk to you soon. See ya. Okay, sorry about that. So I wanted to continue on. I was actually just talking about, with children, how we teach them not to listen to their bodies. So we try and encourage them to eat more than maybe they should be. They've listened to their body. They know they've had enough. And I know this can be tricky because there's all sorts of reasons. Sometimes children have tricky behaviors around food. So it is definitely establishing if they are really have had enough, or if there's something else going on. But just be very aware of not trying to over feed children when they and allowing them to listen to their body. The other side of things is when we tell them, or the other thing is too, of course, there's a child starving somewhere in the world, therefore you should eat more. And it's unfortunately, it's a terrible thing that there's a child's starving in the world. That's just horrific. But teaching your child any not listening to their body and not listening to their intuition and not paying attention to their body signals to make up for that doesn't help anyone. So it really, really is important that children learn how to tune into their body and learn how to respect those signs and signals. The other issue too with children, when we teach them to not listen to their intuition or not listen to certain signals that they get, is the issue in regards to even say hugging or being touched by another person or an adult or something like that. When we say, kiss auntie so and so goodbye, or hug uncle so and so, if that child feels that they don't really feel comfortable being kissed or hugged by an adult, I think it's important that we help them, or to whoever it is, that we support them in that, because otherwise what we're doing is we're teaching children not to listen to their intuition, which will be really, really useful for predators out there. So please really be aware that your child does have a certain level of intuition around some things. Now, I'm not saying purely child led. Adults need to be there, and adults need to create all sorts of boundaries and rules and parameters for safely bringing up a child. So I'm not telling you to not bring in your expertise, but just have a knowledge that children do have certain they do have some sense of some things where they're right, and it's important to help learn how to explore that, as opposed to teaching them not to listen to their intuition. And it's important, sort of, even in other ways. So I'll give you an example. It's interesting. So we have, say, a child in the classroom who's they come back from lunch and they're jumping around and they're really active and they're really finding it hard to focus. And we see that as bad behavior, but it's actually two things. One, it's just supernatural for a child to want to move around and to want to expend a lot of energy. They've got, think of a puppy, right? Same thing, right? If you have a puppy, or if you have sort of big dogs or whatever, that they need to go for lots of walks and you've got to do things, throw the ball, whatever it is, but you've got to use up all of their energy. If you don't, they're going to tear your house apart. Well, children are the same. They have lots and lots of energy, and so it's just that, and boys in particular are quite sort of rambunctious, and they need to jump around and make a mess and whatever they need to do. We sort of, what we try and do is teach them how to sit down and be quiet and all of that kind of stuff. And I know that to a certain degree we need to do that in our society, because they do need to learn how to have a job and all of those things. However, I think we need to maybe figure out sort of a way to manage that energy in a healthy way, rather than just saying it's wrong and it's bad. And then sometimes they're maybe acting that way because they ate a lot of sugar at lunchtime and they need to burn that off too, because children naturally know sometimes in their system they have a lot of something in their system, and one of the reasons that they spin around and go a bit crazy if they've had a lot of sugar is exactly that. Their body knows that they have to burn through it. The other thing is just from emotions too, that adults learn to kind of just push our emotions down, but children kind of express them, and they express them quite loudly and proudly and obviously, or they'll be running around and doing things to sort of move those emotions through their body. But obviously children have to learn over time how to respond to certain situations and how to manage their emotions. You can't have you can't be an adult and be kind of, laying on the ground in the supermarket, stamping your feet or whatever. Doesn't work that way. However, I think that there's a lot of these things that children naturally have, where they are in touch with their emotions, they are in touch with their feelings, they are in touch with their body. And we, rather than kind of help them learn a way to still have that, but respond in more of a grown-up way as they get older, we often just turn it off in them. It's like, sit down and be quiet, don't have feelings, don't have needs, and so there's kind of got to be a balance somewhere. Yes, we want children to learn to grow up and be functional in society, but you can't be falling apart every 5 seconds because of your emotions. But at the same time, it is good to have some connection with them and understand how to work them through, whether it's be talking to someone or whether it be you need to go out for a walk or whatever it is. So anyway, children do have a lot of intuition about a lot of things. And I think with the help of sensible adults in their life, they can be taught how to manage those things and how to learn how to adapt those things into a more adult way of doing them. But what we do is we just tend to stamp it out. So, don't listen to your body, overeat. Who cares? Someone's starving somewhere, so therefore you should eat more than you're comfortable with. Stop listening to your body signs. And your body's telling you to run around and expend that energy, but no, sit down and be quiet. And if you're not, they're a bad boy or a bad girl, So I think that in our society, we need to learn a lot about listening to our body and listening to our intuition. And there's got to be a balance between the childish way of doing it and the adult way of doing it. So the childish way is too instant and loud and disruptive, and the adult way is it can be too pushing it down, pretend we don't have it, disconnecting. Maybe there's some middle ground somewhere where we can learn how to grow up without completely disconnecting, and we can learn a lot from the way that children and animals as well are just very present. There's a lot to be said for being present as well, the way that children and animals are. So anyway, I just wanted to just have that sort of reminder discussion about it is important to learn how to listen to your body signs and signals. Your body does sort of whisper and tell you when things are going wrong, and gets a bit louder, and rather than just ignoring things. And of course, it's that's also why we have your regular checkups and that sort of thing. If you have a funny thing come up on your skin, don't make assumptions about it. It's best to talk to your doctor about it. I go to the skin clinic once a year, sometimes more often if they're keeping an eye on something, but just to look at my Irish skin and tell me what's going on. So, signs, symptoms, they are important. And when we learn how to understand them, we learn which ones are normal, which ones are not. Because honestly, so many of us haven't been taught what's normal, what's not normal. We've got these weird associations with certain feelings or certain experiences because we think there's something wrong. And quite often, what's happening is perfectly normal. We just don't know that because nobody ever told us. Or on the other hand, something that's really not normal and is quite alarming, we think is normal because it's all we've ever experienced, right? So that's why we need to have more of these discussions, and we need to learn about inhabiting our bodies. We've got this body, like I said, longest relationship you're going to have in your life, yet we don't really get lessons on how to inhabit that body, how to understand it, how to understand the signs and symptoms, and how to learn how to have a respect with your body, make friends with it. Not necessarily going to tell you to love yourself or you love your body or not. I don't know that that's. I mean, it's useful to. It's useful. However, what we just need to do is just have a healthy respect for our body. And if we have that, you look after something that you respect or that you love. So it's just having that high regard for yourself that you might have for somebody else, So it is important to have that, and it makes all the difference in managing your health, managing your mental health, and managing your feelings, and learning how to respond to situations. Because if you basically don't disconnect to your body, you're not going to know all the signals of whether you're hungry, you're not hungry, all of that kind of stuff, and you're going to get that wrong. And at the same time, if you're pushing down all your feelings, not having feelings, that sort of thing, well, then you are more likely to kind of react in a poor way because you're sort of not managing your feelings. And then when something happens, you kind of just burst out and yell at somebody or snap at somebody or just maybe have a completely inappropriate response to something. So just learning how to inhabit your body, inhabit your emotions, learning how to live with them, manage them, understand them, and being connected. It can be quite challenging, but it can also be very rewarding, and you're more likely to pick up on if you're having health issues, or pick up on if, just like I'll notice if I start getting snappy at people, or I'll notice if I start getting certain signs and symptoms, or, it's just you notice when things are off. If you notice when things are off with yourself fairly quickly, you are able to get on it and sort it out or do something about it. Whereas if you don't notice when things are off with you, whether it's emotionally or physically, you're more likely to end up with more physical problems or more problems that are more advanced and harder to fix, or, relationships that are breakdowns and things like that, because we're when we stay disconnected, we don't notice stuff. So essentially, the more connected you are with your emotions, with your physical and mental health, the more that you can just have an awareness. It's like an alarm system to notice when things are off, things need to be adjusted. I'm not telling you that the whole world revolves around your feelings, because I hate to tell you this, it doesn't. That's a whole other podcast in itself. But it is important that we are aware of them, though, aware of what we're feeling physically, emotionally, all of that kind of stuff, And like I said, it's just your body's kind of alarm system for letting you know when things are a bit off, things need to be adjusted. And that can help you with your relationships, maybe with your relationships with, or you're dealing with people at work, and or any health issues, understanding what you do and don't need or what's going on for you. And it also then can help you with things like boundaries and relationships and things like that, because when you've got a healthy relationship with your body, you understand what's healthy and what's not, and what you need and what you don't. Then you're more able to communicate that with others and or put up the appropriate boundaries. Anyway, I will leave it there. Sorry for the weird interruption partway through, but just sort of learning the different systems and how, managing my drive space and all of that, the joys of learning how to podcast. Anyway, I really appreciate that you watch on YouTube or Rumble, or you're listening to this, and I really love to hear your feedback and any suggestions of anything that you would like me, topics you would like me to explore, or different kinds of people that I might be able to get on to explore those topics with me. And please like, subscribe, share, all of those things. It is really, really important for all the algorithms and all the different places that for me to get traction, I need people to interact with me online. So please do so. So that and also, if you get value out of this, please do share it, because I'd love other people to get value out of it as well. Anyway, thanks for that. I hope you have a great day, and see you next week. Thanks. Bye.